Spring 1940, one by one, Europe's strongest armies collapse in a matter of weeks. French commanders, still waiting for a long, grinding war, have no explanation, only chaos. How did Germany rewrite the rules and conquer the continent with unprecedented speed? The answer lies in a method called Blitzkrieg, literally lightning war, a modern war machine deadly enough to shatter centuries of military tradition. But what truly powered this lightning war, and could it be repeated? Blitzkrieg, literally lightning war, was more than a slogan. It was a new way of fighting built on three core pillars: speed and surprise, concentrated force at a decisive point, and the seamless integration of different arms, tanks, infantry, and aircraft working together as one. The concept drew on older ideas from military thinkers like Clausewitz, who stressed focusing strength at the enemy's weakest spot, the Schwerpunkt. But what set Blitzkrieg apart was how German commanders turned this principle into action on the battlefield. Instead of slow, grinding advances, armored spearheads punched through narrow fronts, racing deep into enemy territory. Motorized infantry and dive bombers followed, turning breaches into full-scale collapses. Orders flowed not as rigid instructions, but as objectives. The Germans called this Auftragstactik. This mission-type command meant even junior officers could act on their own initiative, adapting to fast-changing situations without waiting for approval from above. Blitzkrieg was never a formal doctrine written down in manuals. It was a method, tested, adjusted, and sharpened in exercises and early campaigns. Its power came from tempo and flexibility, not sheer numbers. The result? Armies that moved faster than their opponents could react, overwhelming them before traditional defenses could even come into play. German armored divisions were more than just collections of tanks. Each panzer division was a tightly organized team, a blend of tanks, motorized infantry, engineers, reconnaissance units, and artillery, all moving at the same relentless pace. The backbone was mobility. Trucks and half-tracks kept riflemen alongside the spearheads, so the advance never stalled waiting for foot soldiers. The real edge came from communication. Nearly every German tank carried a radio. The standard Fug 5 set linked platoons and companies within a 2 to 4 kilometer range, while command tanks with Fuji 8 radios could coordinate over distances up to 140 kilometers. This network allowed orders to reach the front lines in seconds. By contrast, Allied commanders still relied on runners, telephones, or even flags. Those methods could take half an hour or more to relay a single command. The difference was measured in kilometers, gained and opportunities seized. Air support was just as tightly woven into the system. The Ju-87 Stuka dive bomber became the symbol of Blitzkrieg shock. Its sirens screamed as it plunged toward targets, delivering bombs with a precision that could land within 30 meters, far more accurate than high-level bombing. In Poland and France, Stukas hit their marks in over 80% of sorties. But this accuracy came with a price. Slow, steep dives left them exposed for up to 25 seconds, making them easy prey for anti-aircraft guns and, later, enemy fighters. Still, in the early campaigns, German air superiority let the Stuka operate with devastating effect, clearing obstacles for the advancing panzers and shattering enemy morale. Every element was designed for tempo. With radio-linked armor at the front, trucks hauling infantry, and close air support on call, the German assault could keep moving, adjust in real time, and strike where defenses were weakest. These were the engines that turned Blitzkrieg from theory into a force that could break armies in days. At dawn on September 1, 1939, German forces crossed into Poland. The attack came from three directions at once: north, south, and west, driven by armored spearheads and waves of Stuka dive bombers. Polish defenses, spread thin and reliant on slow-moving infantry, struggled to respond to the pace. Panzer divisions advanced up to 40 kilometers in a single day, bypassing strong points and cutting off entire units. Stukas targeted railways, bridges, and command posts, crippling communication and sowing panic among defenders. Within the first week, German columns reached the outskirts of Warsaw. Polish cavalry, once symbols of national pride, found themselves powerless against tanks and mechanized infantry. The campaign lasted just over 5 weeks. By early October 1939, Poland had ceased to exist as an independent state. The operation exposed weaknesses too. Logistical bottlenecks, fuel shortages, and mechanical breakdowns forced German planners to rethink supply tactics. But the lesson was clear. Speed and coordination could break a nation before its army could regroup. The success in Poland became the blueprint for even more ambitious plans to the west. In the winter of 1940, German planners faced a problem: how to defeat France without repeating the brutal deadlock of the First World War. The answer came from an unexpected direction. General Erich von Manstein, then Chief of Staff to Army Group A, proposed a radical alternative to the standard plan. Instead of attacking through Belgium as everyone expected, he urged a concentrated thrust through the Ardennes. The French High Command, led by Maurice Gamelin and later Maxime Weygand, dismissed the Ardennes as impassable for tanks. They described it as a forested, hilly region with narrow roads and few bridges. Their confidence rested on the Maginot Line and a belief that any serious attack would come in the north. Lord Gort's British Expeditionary Force prepared for a repeat of trench warfare, not a mobile breakthrough. Manstein's plan, formally approved on February 24, 1940, shifted the Schwerpunkt, or main effort, south. Army Group A would push through the Ardennes, bypassing the strongest French defenses and striking at Sedan, where the line was thinly held. This choice was a gamble. The terrain threatened to choke armored columns in traffic jams, and a single, well-timed counterattack could have trapped the leading units. But the very improbability of the route created the conditions for surprise. While Allied commanders moved their best forces into Belgium, German panzers gathered in the forests, engines idling, radios silent, waiting for the order to launch the attack that would shatter every expectation. On May 13, 1940, German tanks reached the banks of the Meuse River near Sedan. Under Guderian's command, the 19th Panzer Corps surged forward as engineers threw bridges across the water under relentless French artillery fire. Above, waves of Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers hammered enemy gun positions, flying more than 300 sorties that day and silencing resistance long enough for the armor to cross. By nightfall on May 14th, the bridgehead was secure. French defenses fractured. Kleist's Panzergruppe poured through the gap, expanding the breach with motorized infantry and artillery in tow. In the days that followed, German spearheads advanced up to 60 kilometers per day, bypassing strong points and cutting communication lines. Rommel's 7th Panzer Division, known as the Ghost Division, vanished and reappeared deep behind enemy lines, sowing chaos. Real-time coordination, made possible by radios in nearly every tank, kept the advance moving, even as fuel and supplies strained to keep up. By May 20th, Guderian's lead elements reached the English Channel at Abbeville, trapping over 300,000 Allied troops in a shrinking pocket around Dunkirk. Luftwaffe attacks hammered the beaches, but a massive evacuation managed to rescue 338,000 men. In just 6 weeks, France's armies collapsed. The operational mechanics of Blitzkrieg, speed, concentrated force, and seamless coordination had delivered a victory that stunned the world. The real power of Blitzkrieg lay in its ability to paralyze opponents before they could even react. German commanders operated on a decision cycle measured in minutes, not hours. Orders could be issued, received, and acted upon within 5 minutes, thanks to radio networks that linked tanks, infantry, and air support in a single responsive web. In contrast, French and British forces relied on runners, telephones, and written orders, methods that often took half an hour or more to reach the front. This gap was not just technical, it was also about speed and psychology. As German spearheads broke through, enemy headquarters could not understand what was happening, let alone issue effective countermeasures. The shock of sudden collapse, reinforced by Stuka sirens and the sight of tanks where none were expected, shattered morale and command cohesion. Panic spread faster than reinforcements could arrive. Time and again, the Germans forced their enemies to fight yesterday's battle, always one step behind. The result was not just faster movement, but a multiplying effect. Confusion, delay, and surrender rippled outward from every breakthrough. Blitzkrieg's promise of unstoppable momentum came with a price that grew heavier with every kilometer advanced. Panzer divisions burned through thousands of liters of fuel each day. One tank could consume over 300 liters just to cover 100 kilometers. Keeping the columns moving meant convoys of fuel trucks had to keep pace across battered roads and contested bridges. Even the most disciplined planning could not prevent bottlenecks. As spearheads raced ahead, supply lines stretched thin, sometimes hundreds of kilometers from the nearest railhead. The further the panzers pushed, the harder it became to deliver spare parts, ammunition, and food. Mechanical attrition set in fast. Up to 30% of tanks and vehicles could be sidelined at any given moment by breakdowns or minor damage. Crews worked around the clock to keep their machines running, but the pace was punishing. The terrain itself became a silent adversary. Mud, rivers, and forests slowed resupply and wore down men and machines alike. Blitzkrieg thrived on speed, but every advance deepened the risk of running dry or stalling out. Without constant fuel and maintenance, even the most modern army could grind to a halt. The very qualities that made Blitzkrieg so devastating, its tempo, its reach, and its shock, set hard limits on how far it could go before momentum collapsed under its own weight. Blitzkrieg shattered the illusion of slow, predictable war. Its legacy still shapes military doctrine worldwide. Today, speed and shock remain decisive on every battlefield. The real danger is when these lessons are forgotten, not that they are obsolete. Subscribe for more warfare documentaries explained simply and accurately.